So here we are, 4 years since the referendum. Those promises probably seem even more hollow now than they were at the beginning. No account seemed to have been taken of real human beings, how diverse we are, and how we're all affected in different ways. Now I'm talking to Nick, who's a British national living in the EU. So hello, Nick.
Hi, Clarissa.
Now, can you tell me where are you and what do you do for a living?
So I'm currently living in the Netherlands, and I have been since 2016. I'm a self-employed photographer and an artist, actually. But I've been living in Europe for the last 29 years.
Unless a miracle happens, we are losing freedom of movement at the end of this year. So Nick, for you, is that an expendable luxury that you deserve to have taken away from you, or is it an essential for you, for your livelihood?
It's an essential for my livelihood. And I think that one of the problems that we face in expressing this is, we're all individual people unused to dealing with complicated legal issues, and certainly we're confronted with these. And this is how I feel about it at the moment. Many of us in my industry will find ourselves working for agencies outside of the country in which we live in order to provide photographs from that country. You can imagine a travel agency wanting to have pictures of Amsterdam so they could sell their brochures to people, their brochures to people in Italy. They would want a photographer based in Amsterdam, not one based in Rome.
I think probably over the last 4 years, because there have been delays, I suppose we were perhaps hoping that it would never happen, but at the end of January, it did. Yeah. And then only weeks later, we were faced with the coronavirus crisis. I mean, in Italy, in February, they were already starting to close down schools. They closed us down province by province, then the whole country. Now, I don't know about you, but I think some of us, when we all went into lockdown, we temporarily put Brexit out of our minds. Did you have that? I mean, I think especially those who are in the vulnerable category, our main priority was, let's stay alive.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm somebody in that position. I have 50% kidney function and a heart condition. So that was something that was immediately concerned, particularly as I work as a photographer, which inevitably means working close contact with people. The Netherlands has quite a generous policy towards self-employed people. After some debate, it was announced in the Dutch parliament that third country nationals would be allowed to apply for this without affecting the terms of their residency. Now that immediately throws up a question to me, because I did speak to a Dutch immigration lawyer about this, because he had written this blog explaining that we could now apply for what is known as the TOZO in the Netherlands. And it occurs to me now that he was speaking to me as an immigration lawyer representing third country nationals, not British citizens. And I'm now concerned, despite all the words to the contrary, from the IND, which is the immigration department of the Dutch government, and from this immigration lawyer, that we actually fall into a slightly different category as British citizens protected under the WA. So my fingers are very firmly crossed that having had receipt of this money, that I'm not going to lose my right to remain.
Yeah, because I feel like you've probably had a double whammy from Brexit and the coronavirus to your income. So you said during lockdown, so you had to be super locked down.
I had to shield. I shielded for the first 2 months. My girlfriend and I we literally didn't leave the apartment for the first month. And we then started taking little trips out to the industrial parks on Sundays, because you're allowed to drive a car here, to walk where there was nobody else walking, because nobody was there on Sunday.
Yeah.
This month, I've begun to work again, and my income is approximately 50% of what it would be this month.
You would come into the category of being a cross-border worker, in that you're based in the Netherlands, but some of your clients are in other EU countries. So I imagine
Absolutely.
that's a worry for you.
Well, for example, I made a portrait of a Dutch CEO of a chocolate company based in Belgium, beginning of the month. Now, the agency that employed me to do that is based in Brussels. Now, this is something that I just take, it's a daily thing. I receive commissions from people like that, and I send them an invoice in the normal way. But it's from my Dutch registered company to their Belgian registered company. The way that self-employment works in the Netherlands is slightly different from most countries in that we have to become companies. So I'm not sure whether that will offer some sort of protection. And that, in other words, Nick Gammon, the company, self-employed company, registered German Commerce, is a Dutch entity.
Yeah,
I don't
it's not really clear, is it? I think it's a very complicated area. So your worry is possibly losing that income, and also due to the coronavirus that your income may not be sufficient to meet the requirements to get your residency.
Absolutely. And that's another question which comes up, is how much should that revenue be? Because having spoken to the immigration lawyer, he said, well, it's actually rather generous. You don't have to earn very much, but there isn't actually a figure that you've got to meet.
And there are some people who would probably say, well, just get citizenship of the country that you're living in. But it's not as simple as that, is it?
No, because I would like to become a Dutch citizen, and I'm actually eligible because I'm in a partnership with a Dutch woman. However, that would mean renouncing UK citizenship. Currently, the Dutch Parliament is debating whether or not to allow Dutch citizens to hold dual UK-Dutch nationality, but they've refused to allow us that. So, whilst we hope, fingers crossed, our Dutch friends will be allowed to become dual citizens. UK citizens will not be, unless they are people who are married and have lived here for 15 years.
So you would have to renounce your British citizenship, and therefore you would lose some of your rights under the withdrawal agreement to return to the UK.
Exactly. So I have 3 children living in the UK and an elderly mother. So if something came up, and I had to return for a period of time, I wouldn't be allowed to.
And even if you stay in the Netherlands just as a British national, at some point in the future, I think after March 2022, if you wanted to go there with your Dutch partner, it's not a given that your partner would be able to go, because you'd have to meet the new immigration requirements. So I think your children grew up in France, but have not been able to apply for citizenship in France because of going away to university. Is that right?
They've lost their residency rights because whilst I came over here in 2016, their mother, who we split up when we were living in France, lived there for 14 years, and she returned to London when they went to university. So their rights to return to France have now gone because they no longer live there and they can't go back. It's extremely complicated. I have a sister who lives in France as well. Her children are in an extraordinarily strange position too, because one of them went to university in Britain and then took a year out. Now wants to go back to France, but he probably should have done it a few months ago. So we don't know quite what will happen. He grew up there too. His mother's lived there for 30 years.
To what degree do you feel you will be able to carry on your life as before, as we were promised?
This is a sort of question that has come up again and again and again during this process, because I would assume when you explain to somebody that, as a photojournalist, with one of my hats on, I couldn't go across the border to Brussels and take a news picture and sell it to a French newspaper. I'm supposed to be working in Portland on a travel story this month, which has been cancelled, obviously, to do with COVID. That was to be made for a Danish publication. So presumably I wouldn't be allowed to do that in the future. I can't. Some of it seems to be completely crazy. communications is the word which I work. And these lines of communication seem to be being cut off. I'm not entitled to work. I can't call up the Belgian paper and say, I think I have a little news story for you in Amsterdam. The Brussels photo agency won't be able to call me up and say, can you go and take a picture of a Dutch businessman?
And I would imagine, like me, end of January, you lost your, so I have no voice anywhere now.
No, neither do I. I never worried about that. And all these years living in Europe without a vote in the national elections, I never worried about it. I felt this is a concern. I'm a guest here. I'm not going to engage in the local politics, whether it's Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael in Ireland or in France. It's very complicated. And I didn't engage in it. And I thought that's okay. But now I really, really wish that I had a vote in the country where I pay my taxes. Because I have discovered that without representation, you have nobody to lobby. The politicians that we need are the ones in the countries where we live. And we need some kind of representation because at the moment, we are as chaff in the wind. And I believe this to be a crime of omission rather than a crime of commission. I think Brexit is a crime of commission by Britain.
Yeah.
But our host countries have a duty of care to us. We are Europeans. We've set our stalls out as Europeans, many of us like you and I, for many decades. I've spent the majority of my life as a European. I had no vote in this referendum. I don't approve of the result, but I have no channel to express that politically. And I have no representatives except for people like yourselves who are doing the very best that they can. And people like the MEPs who are doing the very best that they can on our behalf. But we can't call our MP and say, help, this is wrong.
It's been a long, very frustrating process.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much for talking to me, and I wish you the best of luck.
And you too, Clarissa.
For
thank
the
you
future.
very much. Yeah.
Thanks.